We're back on today's episode with Lacey Langford of Milmo.co. And we're very excited to have Lacey back to talk about a trap that's out there for military families. So Lacey, thanks for coming back. I've seen recently, whether I'm buying at Walmart or like tickets from Southwest or whatever, there's this buy now, pay later, I think is how it is. What is that? And like, what are some things to watch out for if I see that seemingly easy way to pay for something that I don't have money for right now?
Yes, I appreciate you letting me come on to rant about this because it is something I feel passionately about. It is what I call the new payday loan. It's just been prettied up and put everywhere. And it's just so easy now to have all of this debt pile up. And what's important is like it's in little things. So you could go now to the gas station. In some places, you buy now, pay later. You could buy a purse with buy now, pay later. You could buy a food online, Uber Eats, buy now, pay later, clothing. So it goes from something small to big, luggage, things like that. It's everywhere. There's different companies that do it, but it's just made it so easy and it's harder to keep track of. So a lot of the payday lenders, that was one of the things. It's like you never had any paperwork. I'd coach people and be like, okay, where's your loan information? Like, oh, we don't have anything. And so it's so hard to see like what the interest rate was. And it's tempting because the thought is there's no interest right now. So I'll just take out this buy now, pay later on this shirt. Well, then it's like, okay, well, I don't have any money and I want to get some groceries. So I'm going to use buy now, pay later to pay for that. And so it just starts to pile up. You're starting to make payments on these, but a lot of people don't realize that if you don't make those payments, there are late fees. And now the credit bureaus they're going to start reporting that. So it will start to impact your credit report now. So a lot of people have multiple buy now, pay later loans that they're not aware of. So if you're single, okay, you just have yours to keep track of. But if you're married or in a relationship and your money's together and you both are doing a bunch of little buy now, pay laters, all of those loans are going to start to add up. So even if they're shorter term, and this is the whole thing with a payday loan, it was like, okay, this is just a short-term Band-Aid to get me through to payday. Well, now we just have a ton of little ones spaced out everywhere. And if you're not keeping track, then things can easily get lost and you can miss a payment. But then also too, the confusing part are there are different companies. So if you aren't keeping track of all the ones you have at Klarna or the other ones, it all starts to get really confusing. So if you already are not being organized with your finances and your paycheck to paycheck, this could absolutely exacerbate your situation. So I just do not think it's a good idea, if you could not tell from my tone.
I can't agree with you more. I mean, I think this almost makes credit card debt look like a good idea because it's all in one place. You know the interest rate you're paying on it and you can keep track of it. And in fact, they're legally mandated to tell you, okay, if you only make the minimum payment, it's going to take you 100 years to pay off this debt. And the people who are taking on multiple buy now, pay later plans are not people who are keeping track of their expenses, right? And so if you are tempted to click that button because it creates the illusion that you're spacing out the payments, you're like, oh, it's only $10 a week for the next 4 weeks. Like, I can afford that. I make $1,000 a week. But it's just those 1,000 cuts, those little microtransactions that you're not even noticing. And that's a feature, right? It's not a bug of the system. It's a feature that we don't have the mental capacity to keep track of all these little payments. And before you know it, you have robbed thousands of dollars from your future self to give your current self whatever, stupid thing you were just going to go buy at Walmart and DoorDash burritos. So this is very insidious. And I'm glad that you're ringing the alarm bell now because I bet we're only a few months or years away from lots of people reaching out to, financial coaches, financial advisors, and financial mentors and saying, I have racked up thousands of dollars of buy now, pay later, and I have no possible way to pay it off. What do I do? I'm considering, debt consolidation. I'm considering taking on a payday loan to pay off the buy now, pay later. But I mean, this is exactly where, if you're listening to this and you don't have any buy now, pay later stuff, do not start now. That's step number one. And then if you do, stop doing it. Just stop doing it and start tracking down where it all is. Like, search your email, figure out what companies you have the debt with, And I mean, you got to go full Dave Ramsey on this. You got to pay those off and you have to never click that button again, I think would be my advice to anybody out there who is using these products.
You know what's scary is I have actually been ringing this bell for over 5 years. I have been blown away. I'm like, why is nobody else as worked up about this as I am? Because it's so easy. So unfortunately, I know people probably listening right now have a lot of them. And that's what's happening now. We've gotten to the point where this has become a habit now, like a credit card. And it's been a little bit a mini bailout here and there. And unfortunately, when you apply for a credit card, they don't have that information right now. They don't know that you have 50 buy now, pay laters piled up. And so you're allowed now to take on credit as well. And that if they knew all of these other things in the background, they might not be willing to give you a credit card. So just I know there are a lot of people that have gotten themselves in a bad way. So it's just really important. I think, especially if you're on active duty and you're at this point, like you should definitely go into one of the aid societies and talk to a financial counselor because they can help you make a plan. Like, okay, this has gotten a little out of hand, but we can rein it in. And this has been why I've been banging this drum for over 5 years, because it's in the pipeline. It's getting ready to start affecting security clearances. And I know it's, rare that people lose their security clearance for financial considerations in the adjudication process. But this is like sleeper ones. So it's like, okay, because it's not being reported. And so in the adjudication process, they also aren't aware that you have 20 or 50 buy now, pay laters. And so, right. I mean, maybe they do. I don't know exactly how they get a hold of those types of information. But I think, now soon it's getting ready to start getting reported. And so if you have already, you're teetering with your other debt, and then it gets reported, all of your buy now, pay later, it's like, okay, we're going to have to, have a pause in your security clearance while we talk about this. Or at a minimum, it's just overextending people. I'd hate to make people worry about their security clearance because, again, that is extreme that would happen. But I feel like there's a lot working that hasn't been the normal process, that when it does start showing up in your credit reports, it might be a little bit different.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the stress that this places on military families when they overspend and they don't realize they're overspending, because it reduces the friction or the pain of paying for something. Like Dave Ramsey has people paying cash because you can physically feel the pain of that money leaving. And debit cards don't feel quite as much pain. Credit cards don't feel as much pain. And then you do this where it's like literally just clicking a button and somehow magically your sandwich is there. But one of the traps here, in addition to overspending, in addition to not having visibility, in addition to not having the same kind of credit protections or consumer protections in there if there's any disputes or anything, you can also get hit with a bunch of fees, like late fees. So you order a $5 burrito on buy now, pay later, and you miss one payment, and all of a sudden it's a $35 burrito because of the late fees.
Yes, and there are other fees in there that, just like payday loans used to do, it was like a paperwork handling fee, like if you're late and crap. And so you might not even are thinking, okay, well, I'm just going to get hit with a late fee. But if you haven't read all of the terms, they might have another fee in there for being late that you're not even aware of. So
I guarantee you no one's doing that.
Yes, for sure. So it's just, you go to like an all-you-can-eat buffet and you just pig out, and then at the end, you're like, you know what? Like, let me go ahead and get 2 pieces of cheesecake. Like, you can't overspend like that. Like, you're going to burst. And it's the same thing with your money. It's like, there's a limit here on how much you can spend. And so if you go over that, like, it's just going to blow out your whole budget.
Again, that's like how this is designed, is you end up buying more things that you don't need because it somehow lessens the perceived cost of each item. When they break it down, they're like, oh, well, if you pay over the next 5 weeks, it's only $5 a week. You're like, oh, well, that's easy. Whereas if it's $25 up front, we've already removed so much of the pain of spending by digitizing all of our spending, right? Like, this is why in like the Dave Ramsey school of thought, you actually literally pull out cash and put it into envelopes, and you have to hand over the cash when you pay for things, because you have to, it creates that sense of loss where you're like, okay, I just went out to buy groceries and it cost $200, and I had to literally see $10, $20 bills leave my hand, and I got nothing back in change. Whereas when you just swipe a credit card, or now tap a credit card, we've already removed so much of the emotional lift of seeing the money leave your wallet. And then this buy now, pay later thing just takes it to the next level, right? Because now you don't even have the emotional pain of looking at your credit card statement or your debit card statement and seeing the full $25 transaction. You just see these little micro transactions. And I mean, really, it's like probably the next level to this, right, is like burrito subscriptions, right? Like where you just pay $3 a month and you can get a burrito, but now you're hooked for life on the.
That sounds pretty good though. That's the bad
would.
example. I might be interested in that.
Yeah.
The other thing, another stat here is that a third of users miss payments. I saw that one. I'm not going to cite a source because I'm going to get it wrong, but up to a third of users miss a payment. And like we talked about, there are fees for missing payments. I mean, that's how, like, the companies aren't doing this out of the goodness of their heart, right? Like, they're trying to make money. And one of the ways they make money is if you don't meet the terms and conditions that you signed your life away to, then they're going to charge you an extra fee. Again, you might be the person who's like, no, I've never missed a payment. I have it all set up. I've got it all under control. And it's like, great. Well, then why do you even need this, right? Like, you shouldn't need a buy now, pay later plan if you're the type of person who never misses a payment. You should just pay for things up front, what they cost. And I can really only think of, 2 or 3 things in life that it's okay to take some debt on for. And that's usually buying a house, right? Maybe buying a car, and education. Obviously, there's value there because you're getting smarter and you could potentially earn more later in life. A house it's an asset-backed debt. So like in the worst case scenario, if you stop making payments, the bank just tanks it and then that eliminates the debt. And then for a car, I mean, it's a depreciating asset, but there's an argument to be made that sometimes when you're first getting started and you like your military career or in any career, maybe you need to buy some level of car that requires a little bit of debt. But again, those are all things that you're going to pay off very rapidly, especially the car, especially the student loans. And then you're going to move on with your life, where these buy now, pay later things, it's just so tempting to just keep clicking that button. It never ends. You never get ahead of it. You never get to that debt freedom point.
Spencer, I know sometimes you tease me when I give a bunch of stats, but I have to share a couple more here. The buy now, pay later market in the US is $170 billion this year in 2025, projected to grow in 2030 to over $367 billion. Klarna, one of the companies, has 150 million globally customers right now. And a firm in quarter one of 2025 made almost 700 million. That's up 41% year over year. And they project that, this is from Capital One, 91.5 million Americans will use buy now, pay later this year, which means it will affect the military families if we don't get the awareness out there.
Absolutely. And, in all of that, and this is just seeing like where this is going to lead. And it, unfortunately, sometimes in marriages, if you're not having money conversations, things get out of hand. And this is actually, I think, a sleeper that's going to cause a lot of financial marital problems because it's so easy to hide. So it's like you, again, might not know your spouse has 10 buy now, pay laters running. You might, if it's going, through your debit card, if they're paying it. And so if you're not having these conversations about, hey, we shouldn't be using this, that's probably a lot of couples have never had that conversation to be like, no, that's credit. Like, we're not going to do that. Where some might think like, oh, no, it's just like, unfortunately, I even hate to say it out loud, but a lot of people think of it like layaway. And that's not how layaway works. And what's a bummer is they've done away with layaway because of buy now, pay later to include at the exchange. So it used to be that you could get your Christmas presents for your kids and make payments on it. So you don't receive the stuff yet and then pay for them and then get all of the things that you want by a certain time. But now you don't have that option. So it's like leading people to use buy now, pay later instead of layaway. It's not something you should, if you don't have the money for right now, you shouldn't be buying it.
So I want to talk directly to that service member or spouse that didn't understand how dangerous this was and maybe has a couple of them or several of them. What do they do? How do they talk to their spouse? How do they go get help? What would be a couple pieces of advice that you would have for someone that's like, wow, this does sound really bad. I probably shouldn't have done it.
I would say just starting to talk about it. Keeping things hidden doesn't make it better. It actually just makes it worse. So I think if, you're married, it's like, all right, hey, I actually have had these buy now, pay later, and I was making payments on them, I'm not, or whatever it is. I think talking about it. And then if as a couple, if that's maybe causing friction, the discussion, that's when it's really great to go get a neutral third party. And you can get one free on military installations or Military One Source. But to talk about the money stuff, like, okay, hey, I wasn't cool with you doing this. I didn't know you were doing it. Now we have this stuff. It's totally figure outable. It's just starting to talk about it. and then rearranging your budget to make sure that you pay for them. And it's like having credit card debt. You have to make a game plan to get out of debt. And depending, I think with these, just the little ones, they would be so easy to pay off. You know, it's like, okay, hey, we're giving up going out to eat this month, but we're going to pay off all these buy now, pay laters. So I think it's a somewhat quick fix if you identify it and work on it now. But if it's really out of hand, then I think really talking to a financial professional and getting a solid game plan of getting out of that problem would be important.
Well, Lacey, once again, I'm really glad that you've been ringing the alarm bells on this. And I think there is a tremendous amount of risk here for civilians, but especially for military service members who have to be very careful with their credit and debt management. Where can people find you and what you're working on at the moment?
Oh, yes, definitely at milmo.co is my website. I am working on some fun things with my podcasts that are coming out. I'm also working on my conference, Mill Money Con. Hopefully soon I'll be announcing the location for 2026 and the dates, but I'm not quite there yet. But if you want to connect with me, it's Milmo on all social media or Mill Money Con for my conference on social media.
Awesome. And that's the Milmo Show is the podcast. You can check it out. Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Lacey, thanks again so much, and we'll have you back soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Military Money Manual podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. This helps others find the show, and we really appreciate it. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
The views and opinions presented here are those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent the views of the DoD or its components. Reference to any commercial products or services does not constitute DoD endorsement of those products or services.